By now you've started to gather a large pile of things that you've read, things that you're going to be reading, to try to make sense of a literature review. And so I try to think of a way to explain some ways of sharing your expertise as you start to get too much and figure out what to do with it. So I'm going to do it to try to be a little less dry by showing you an area of my expertise, which is, as you can see, salt and pepper shakers. So you can use whatever topic you're thinking of. I'm going to use salt and pepper shakers because obviously that's not what you're writing on, and you're going to know a little bit more about them and have a little more expertise yourself by the time we're done seeing this afternoon or evening or morning, whenever that happens to be. But this also might be one that you're going to come back to in the future to think about how to make your piece of writing powerful. Now, I've known about salt and pepper shakers all my life, so have you probably, but I know about them in a little bit different way because, you see, I can tell you when these were made, who made them, I can tell you about their value, and my expertise comes from this right here. This is my basement, and my mother has over 9,000 pairs of salt and pepper shakers down here. Now, what I just did was give you a hook. If you aren't a little bit more interested than you were before I said that sentence, I didn't do it well. When you write, it's really important to have some way of catching your reader's interest. Well, 9,000 pairs usually catches people's attention pretty well. So I'm going to give you a quick run through around the basement just so you can see what 9,000 pairs of salt and pepper shakers looks like. Well, anybody that has that many pairs of salt and pepper shakers should have some kind of expertise. But what people always ask when they walk in here is they always ask, how do you know what you have? And how do you know if you already had it? And if we just put them, well, there's the cat. Of course, the cat always has to come in anytime I'm recording anything. Well, enjoy Muffy here as well. I do know which ones we have and which ones we don't because I've organized them in my head, and my mother, of course, has organized them her entire life, so that we know by theme, by category, by age, by many different ways where we got them, and we do also number them. We have a database that says where we got each one of them and information about them. So I'm going to give you one way I could organize my writings about salt and pepper shakers. One is I could go by age, and I could tell you that old salt and pepper shakers, that the pepper shaker looks familiar to you, but the salt shaker was actually a salt cellar. Salt would clump, especially when the weather got damp, then you have to spoon it out. And it was only in the last 200 years or less that you started to see salt shakers as well, when they figured out how to keep the salt from being crumbled. And if you know from clumping up, you know Morton salt, the little girl that carries the umbrella on the box of the Morton salt. The Morton Company was the one who figured out how salt could pour even when it was damp outside. And you can tell a lot about a shaker just by looking at it. For example, this one's plastic, so obviously it didn't come about in 1880. This is one from the 1950s, and the novelty shakers at that time were often household things. A lot of the shaker collectors were women who collected on their vacations, and it was quite an appealing thing to do at that time. Now you see what I'm doing? I'm going through sequentially. One way you can go through you can do your explanation of your expertise is through time. This one also, you can tell when it came from by the character that is not as old as these others are, and you can today even get really cute novelty ones that are not too expensive, and today you can also get handmade ones. This is one of the most expensive sets in the collection, the Titanic and the Iceberg Nod. And that's a category of shakers, so we do it by category. And then these are so expensive because they never went into production. Only 17 of those were ever made. So you learned some things there, more than you probably wanted to know about shakers. that's one way I could have done it. I also could have done it by size of shakers. Yeah, I can go from some of the smallest shakers. I put my hand in the picture so that there is some kind of comparison to, and comparing things is oftentimes how lit reviews are done as well. So here's some of the smallest shakers in the collection, and these that are almost 2 feet high are some of the largest shakers that are in the collection. But generally, when you look at our shakers, they're not done by size or by age. They're done by theme. And so if I want to see shakers that are done by Coca-Cola, they're one of the shelves. If I want to see all the kangaroos, for example, I'm going to pick up my machine here and show you. You never saw so many kangaroo salt and pepper shakers, I'm sure. We do not have by anywhere near the largest collection. We have friends that have over 20,000 pairs in their collection. But now from looking at what I've told you, the examples I've told you, you probably can tell me a little bit about when and where things were made, which ones were made a long time ago, which ones are more modern. And by the way, if you're looking for the most expensive ones you're seeing right now, that would be this pair right here. And not because it's any better than these or some of the others necessarily, but it's rare and it's hard to find, which makes another reason why shakers are hard to come by, those real special ones, because all the collectors want them. Now, I've told you a number of things about salt and pepper shakers to tell you that it's important to organize, not only so that you know where things are, but you take your reader on that journey with you. And so that your reader understands why you're doing what you're doing, and that they're learning and becoming an expert themselves. To make something powerful, you tell them a story. This is a great example of telling a story in shakers. This is my mom's collection that she's made a display of the story of her life through salt and pepper shakers. For example, this is the very first pair that she ever owned. And this she had for her wedding. Now, by telling you a story about these, they no longer are just a bunch of little glass things that you use for seasonings. They have some meaning to them. So the same thing happens when you use examples, when you use powerful quotations, when you use stories, that you can make your lit review powerful as well as memorable. You will remember this the next time you reach out onto the table to pass the salt. And you will remember it not because you saw so many of them. Number of things is not as important as the quality of the writing that you do. So as we go through, we're going to think about making our lit reviews organized, making them powerful, and making them meaningful. And by the way, what I just did was a good summary. Every good lit review has summaries of each section and a summary at the end of the entire thing, so that the reader knows the breadth and the depth of the expertise they've just gained.